Hey guys, in this video I'm gonna explain how to replace the battery on a Tesla Model 3 and a Model Y. This is a brief kind of overlook. You need to look at each step in the service manual, which you can find at service.tesla.com to see the details. But basically what you got to do is first disassemble the interior a little bit. There are these bolts that use external Torx Plus. I think it's 20, I don't remember for the size. To get to these, you gotta lift up the carpet on in front of the driver's feet and passenger's feet. There's two bolts on each side, and then these are gonna be basically underneath the rear seat. There's one bolt on each side, and then these, some cars have them, some cars don't. You gotta move the seats forward to get access to them. Lift up the carpet and kind of go under the carpet to access these two bolts. And for none of this, you don't need to remove the seats for any of this. You just need to move them back to access those bolts, and then move them forward to access these bolts. Of course, you got to remove the seat cushion, disconnect this plug, 13mm nuts hold a couple bolts here, and then the charge port. It's pretty self-explanatory. Now this charge port plug, if you're installing a battery that has a different one, if you're installing an older battery in a newer car or vice versa, you can replace these. You can move them from the battery to the battery. That's not a problem at all. You can basically all these batteries that are the similar kind of size, they're compatible with each other. So you can install 75 kWh battery in a newer car, or 82 kWh battery onto an older car. 18 through 24, actually 25. They're all compatible, as long as it's not the structural pack, which of course is going to be different. Now one difference, of course, is rear-wheel drive versus front-wheel drive. So you can install a rear-wheel drive battery on an not front, but all-wheel drive. You can't. And then another thing is, if you're going to install a battery that is from a newer car, you might not have a fuse for the PTC heater, so you might need to install another fuse in here. If you see that there's two fuses, you might need to add a third one if you're installing it into a car that's 18 through 20. So then of course you got to disassemble on the bottom a little bit, disconnect these high voltage cables, disconnect the coolant lines, flush all the coolant out, and then remove this cable that runs on the bottom of the battery. There's this metal bar that runs across the whole pack. You got to remove that. And I mean, there's a lot of minor details that I'm skipping over, but at the end, after you lift up the battery back in, you can make sure all the coolant lines are connected, and before you screw everything, connect everything together, I would recommend filling it with coolant, and just to make sure there's no coolant leaks. Flush all the air out. And also a good idea to actually pressure test the new battery to make sure that it doesn't have an internal coolant leak before you even start this whole process. Then electronically wise, what you need to do is you need to power the car using a maintainer. For example, something like this. You need something that can provide 50 amps at 12 volts. Power up the car using the maintainer, and then run a software reinstall routine. And then what you need is you need toolbox in order to run the post HV battery replacement routine. Now if you're installing a battery that is exactly the same, oftentimes you don't need to do that, but it won't hurt. It's a good idea to run it. If you're installing a slightly different battery than originally, in some cases all you need to do is, if it's the same size, like all long-range batteries are the same size, but if the weight is a little different, you might need to adjust the what they call the pack deviation setting, the config setting. And if you're installing a different size battery, then you also need to adjust the battery, I don't remember what it's called, the battery size setting. But that's a closed, lockdown config, so you need some help from somebody who has access to those. And then you just screw everything back in, and test everything out. Of course, you got to remove these rocker panels as well before you can get to the battery. I mean, all these minor details I'm not mentioning, but yeah, I mean, it can be done DIY if you're really up to it. I would recommend taking it to a shop if you have one nearby, if you haven't done any complicated mechanical work before. And yeah, you can do it without a lift. You can do this on some jacks. What you can do is you can put get four jack stands, and you can have 2 jacks, one on each side, to lower down the battery. With some clever gymnastics, you can get it done. The most difficult part is going to be getting this fend house out of the car, so the rear end needs to be pretty high for it to come out, but it can be done without a lift. Anyhow, unfortunately I can't answer any questions. I'm pretty busy, but feel free to leave a comment. Maybe somebody else will answer questions. Thank you very much.